When I was in Texas covering the presidential primaries there, I met a field organizer from the Obama campaign named Joe Boswell. Joe's first assignment for the Obama campaign was in Iowa, and he told me this little story about trying to organize the youth vote there.
Iowa is one of the oldest, whitest places in the country. And they always said, the young people will never turn out here. They said, there's no way. Of course, what happens at the caucus? So I get there, you know, all these older people are there. I'm sort of getting a little nervous. I'm like, oh, geez, like, are the young people going to show up? Like, next thing I know, like half an hour later, the young kids just start streaming in.
Of course, Barack Obama went on to win the Iowa caucus, largely because of the youth vote. And I bring up this little anecdote, Joe's story, because I think it really summarizes the story of this primary. Many people thought that they had this election figured out, but that's until the young people showed up.
In 2008, in the primaries so far, we're seeing increased participation in almost every single state that we have previous data for. Now that's a good sign because generally when you see high participation in the primaries, you see high participation in the general.
In fact, young people have turned out in such large numbers that there is actually a generational divide in the Democratic Party. Age has been the single greatest indicator of how a person is likely to vote in this race, with older folks favoring Hillary Clinton and younger Barack Obama. But this split may also be an indication of something even larger that's happening, and that is that we could be sitting on the edge of what political scientists call a realigning election. Realigning elections are elections that usher in a huge shift in the political system, a new direction in policies, and they usually only happen every few decades. The best example is probably the election of Franklin Roosevelt in 1932, which brought us the New Deal and a revolutionary series of programs and reforms, including Social Security, that aimed to lift the country out of the Great Depression.
Throughout our history, these makeovers or turnovers or realignments have occurred, and they occur for two reasons. One, they occur because of the rise of a new, large, dynamic generation. And the second reason is that coincident with this, there is also the development of a new communication technology. For the baby boomers was television, and for this generation it's going to be the web-based social networking communications.
The millennial generation, which is the youngest generation eligible to vote in this election, is also the largest and most diverse generation in American history. And with their fluency in new technologies like social networking sites, they've already had a major impact on the political process. For some insight and perspective into this idea, I recently sat down with the authors of a new book on the subject. So I'm sitting here with Morley Winograd and Michael Hayes. They just wrote a book called Millennial Makeover, MySpace, YouTube, and the Future of American Politics. And I wanted to ask you both, why did you decide to write this book?
It's been kind of traditionally believed that young voters don't vote, they don't get involved, they sit on the sidelines. Maybe by the time they're in their 30s or 40s, they might start getting involved, but not before then. And we said, no, this is going to be a young generation that is going to get involved in such large numbers that it can really shape the political process and dynamic this year. And it's happened.
So millennials are what are called a civic generation. They want to participate as a group in changing and improving society. It's governmental institutions, it's politics. And when you get that kind of a generation in the size of the millennials, which are bigger than the biggest generation in American history, bigger than the baby boomers by far, you know those attitudes are going to come into the political arena with great force.
So it's going to reshape American politics?
Completely. The civic attitudes that they bring into the electorate will end this kind of partisan gridlock that we've had.
This generation is much more liberal, much less concerned with social issues like abortion and gay rights, much more concerned with basic economic issues like health care and economic inequality and foreign policy measures. So between the new generation with its new way of thinking and the new technology that the generation can use to mobilize itself or be mobilized by others, they turn the process around.
So what kind of an effect can this technology have on the political process?
Well, it'll have as dramatic effect on the political process as Napster had in the music industry. So it takes all the power out of the center, all the power away from authority and elites, and it brings it down to the grassroots level or netroots level and allows people to self-organize peer-to-peer. We write in the book about the power of social networks like MySpace, Facebook, and YouTube to organize political campaigns. Some candidate really understood it and did it.
And who's that?
and that would be Senator Obama.
Why do you think Senator Obama is so popular amongst youth?
Well, I think he has sensed these generational differences.
His message has been attuned to the millennial generation because he's talking about change and unity and hope, this is the most optimistic generation we've seen in a long time. And so he's speaking in kind of the values of the generation. And then he added to it the medium. So he used social networks to organize his campaign. It's that perfect harmony between the messenger, the message, and the medium that has made him so popular.
Why do I get the sense that there are a lot of political pundits out there, and even candidates right now, that aren't really open to this idea? And not only are they open, they're skeptical.
The people saying that tend to be of other generations. And so they're imposing their view of how the world works on this generation, which has an entirely different view of the world. Unfortunately, there are not enough millennials in the middle of all of this commentary and punditry to be able to speak up for themselves, and one of the reasons that we wrote the book was to stand back and tell the older generations, look, you have to understand this new crowd. They are going to change things, and if you don't understand those kinds of changes, you're going to not only miss them, as for instance Senator Clinton did early in Iowa when she didn't realize the youth vote was going to come out in the caucuses.
So what's next? Well, one thing we've learned for sure in this primary season, it's not to make any predictions. But the big question is how all of this is going to play out in the general election. Are we on the edge of a political realignment? What do you think? Send us your comments or predictions if you dare. Just go to current.com and search for Generation Gap. Thanks for watching.